And everyone is muted when you come into this call. So if you're interested in speaking anytime during this meeting, we encourage it. I just would like to ask you to raise your hand, and then I will acknowledge you and let you speak. So you can also communicate via the question pane by typing in questions if you have any questions, and we will try to respond to those as we go along too. So again, we'll be starting in just a few minutes. We're going to let a few more people join in before we get going. Well, Bob, it's 1 o'clock, so I guess, or just maybe 2 minutes after, I guess we should go ahead and get started. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm about ready. We're at about 26 people now, so yeah, any time I think would be good. Well, again, welcome everybody to January 2010. It's our first meeting of the year, and I hope everybody had a good holiday. Let's see. Well, today we have Mark Kalin, who is the chair of the Sustainability Practice Group, and he's going to be talking with us a little bit about the Specifiers Property Information Exchange, or the SPI project, which is it's an essential aspect for data management as it applies to BIM. So. He's going to be talking about that for about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll have plenty of time to discuss. There's a lot that goes into it, and I'm sure a lot of questions that'll come up. In addition, we received quite a bit of feedback on some ideas for different presentations for this year, so we wanted to start going over that and taking some time to discuss some different ideas and what everybody thinks about that. So, since we're starting out the year pretty fresh here, we don't really have any housekeeping that I can think of, but I do know that Roger wanted to make a couple of statements and comments. So with that, I want to welcome everybody here and pass it over to Roger for a minute or two so he can clear a couple things.
Okay, well, thanks, Bob. I mostly just want to let everybody, make sure everybody's clear on the logistics. Everyone is muted today, but we do, as always, encourage you to speak up. The only footnote there is you'll have to raise your hand and let me give you permission to speak, because everything is muted so that we don't have any background noise. In fact, I would like to ask that somebody raise their hand just so I can make sure that everything's working, and then we'll let them speak for the group. Okay, let's see. I've got Deborah. I've unmuted you. Can you say hello and tell us that the things are working? Well, I tried to unmute you. Let me try that again. Deborah.
Yes. Can you hear now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so it's working.
Great.
Okay.
John McCaffrey, I'm trying to unmute you, but it doesn't seem to be responding, so I'll work on that. All right, so again, just to reiterate, raise your hand if you want to say anything or send in a question, type in a question and send it, and we will respond as best we can here. And what we're going to do now, as Bob said, is have our presentation for the meeting. So I'm going to pass the presentation over to Mark Kalin, who's going to share with us some background and work on the SPY project that we talked about some last week. Mark, I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter.
Thank you, Roger.
While we're switching screens, just for those of you who don't know Mark, he's on the CSI Technical Committee. Mark is currently the president of SCIP. Mark, is that right?
For another few months.
Another few months. Mark's a specifier practicing in Newton, Massachusetts, and a fellow of CSI, and a certified specifier. And Mark does a lot of interesting work, and he's going to share some of that with us today.
Thank you, Roger. Can you see the PowerPoint at this point that says Specifiers property set?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. This is a quick overview of a presentation that was done in Washington in December as part of EcoBuild and seminars being put on by the National Institute of Building Sciences. There was a seminar of about 50 people put together by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Bill East, Building Smart, CSI. In attendance were a lot of building product manufacturers, a lot of SCIP members, a number of architects. So the acronyms on the first screen: SCIP, Specifications, Consultants, and Independent Practice. A group of 200 people who are either in-house specifiers or independent specifiers, and new acronym SPY, Specifiers Property Information Exchange. Building Smart supporting this, the Engineering Research and Development Lab, the Corps of Engineers, CSI. So the issue is how do you put the I in BIM, and it goes back to the basically the time when spec writers were buried in paper, left alone. Life was good, publish your books hardbound, but it doesn't work that way anymore. And as our clients move into BIM and start to put schedules like they're used to doing, the door schedule, window schedule, pretty soon we'll be doing finished schedules. And the building product manufacturers are pretty desperate at this point to make sure their products are represented. So what you see there on the lower right is Bob Wygant's house. If you want me to turn this off, Bob, let me know. But the issue is that in BIM, with a knowledgeable person, you can dim the lights in your living room. You can see the view out through your screen doors. You can order your studs cut the size if that's Bob was his own carpenter, certainly reducing the number of cuts that he had to make. And so there were all these products have manufacturers, and they need to be represented, and there seems to be uniformat and master format in programs like Revit, but where do we go? So the information that a specifier would understand is an outline spec. There's tile carpeting is up on the screen right now, a master format number, a uniformat number, and these are the types of things that a specifier would recognize during the schematic design phase of a project. Where is my tile carpeting going? Are there sustainable design components? Have I picked any manufacturers? Are there materials? Are there several installation methods? Are there auxiliary materials? And of course, these things will be confirmed by the designer and the cost estimator, and this type of information, the sooner it gets into the model, the better it will be for being able to look at the model for energy performance, leak compliance, any kind of manufacturer that you want to pull out. But it won't look like this in the model, obviously. But the SPY property sets are essentially 425 spec sections that look like this tile carpeting one. They're in a database or a spreadsheet. They're cataloged by master format and uniformat numbers, and they're a place to start as the manufacturers fill out their information. If you make carpet tile, you'll probably have a lot more criteria than I put here. And at the seminar in December, it was quite clear that GE, for example, with lighting, started with property sets and then expanded it based on what they keep track of. So how do we go from what looks like an outline spec into the industry foundation classes, where this doesn't really look very familiar to most specifiers, but either the computer needs to speak spec or vice versa. And, you know, again, why are we doing this? There's no point in putting data in a model if you're not going to use it. As Bill East and the Army pointed out with their COBE program, in the spec and in the model, they need to know, starting very early on, whether materials and products are interchangeable or interoperable. When do you change a filter? How much does this cost to ship in a plane if you're the Army? If you're doing bachelor officers' quarters and you've got a BIM model, carpet is not going to be one of the choices you can have for the floor. So you can have spec-constrained BIM models by owners. I imagine if you were a Marriott and you wanted a particular STC between units, hotel room units, that would live in the model, and you'd be able to manage that process. If cost estimators or suppliers or people in a plan room need to look at a spec, like a spec, that's fine. If you need to look at it in the model, that should be available too. So we've got plenty of standards and formats. Everyone on the call is very familiar with master format, uniformat, OmniClass, which includes the other two, CSI's green format, the National CAD standard. So in BIM, something I've coined BIM spec. You've got a project in BIM, you've got an object in the project, a material in the object, and attributes of the material. You have to choose how you want to express that, master format, uniformat, OmniClass, and you have to decide how you want that's out of the model, as a CAD object, as a working drawings, as a BIM object, as a report, as a spec. And so you start looking at different pieces of a Revit application. Here's a basic wall, exterior brick and CMU. There are attributes and representations there. Some of those are familiar to a specifier or an architect. Some are not. Core boundary is not a term that a specifier uses, but is important in the model. You can choose an assembly code in a model. This is from Revit, and these are the uniformat numbers. So you have, those of you who, I think most of us know uniformat, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the different characteristics. And so you can select from an assembly point of view, express something in uniformat. CSI is updating uniformat this year, along with a preliminary project description. So whether you call it an outline spec or a preliminary project description, whether you organize it by master format or uniformat, or go back and forth, this is all coming. And the SPI property sets, this 9,000-line database we have right now, is a way to organize that. So you can go into your model, you can deal with type properties, you can decide you're using a keynote, a model number, a manufacturer, but again, only if it's going to be of value to you later in, later in the game. I was at the Boston Society of Architects has a building information modeling group. They get together every month. This month, the construction administration people were there. What's BIM got for me in construction administration? I'd asked how many people in the room had models where the name of the brick or the name of the drywall was in the model, and we're not there yet. Fully capable of doing it, but until the architect or the specifier can shake the model and get out the schedules that you need, until the architect perhaps is being paid to do that, or the contractor sees value in it, then the information will not be in there. So the Specifiers Property Information Exchange is currently on the web in a couple different places. The Building Smart Alliance site, if you want to go and look at all the property sets and the individual items. If you'd like to have a comment, if you'd like to call Bill East, who is the chair of this project, which began mid-last year and finished in December. You can also go on to the Whole Building Design Guide website, 8 million pages of relevant information. You can frequently say you can probably type your own name in there and find something, but in any event, the Specifiers property templates are there, and you can search the templates. And the goal here is that CSI and NIBS and others will reach out to more and more building product manufacturers and more trade associations to have them verify the keywords that need to be put into a model so it works from them, perhaps as an ordering and a just-in-time delivery. But again, to me personally, the real value of the BIM model is in schematic design, and I only need schematic design information. If I was talking about a door, in schematic design, I need to know, is it wood or metal, and is it fire rated or not? I don't need to know whether it's reinforced for through hardware, and maybe I need to know it's maple or cherry or oak, or maybe not. But the phase of the project will determine the information. So if we go a little bit further into the Whole Building Design Guide site, here's just a sample template from a pretty bizarre topic, darkroom processing equipment, and some fairly simple properties and sample example values, manufacturers, faucets, ductboard, sink mats, things like that. It's not intended to be comprehensive. These are kind of like typical answers. And as we go into IFC and some data sets that Nick Nesbitt at AEC and others have put together, it's been going on for a long time. There are several hundred of these property set definitions where you can see it's a much more rigorous breakdown, light fixture type, lamp type, and the database will continue to grow. If you're looking at in a Revit model, here's a panel board on a wall. It has certain attributes. Many people want to know about that panel board. There are SPI property sets, a form that you could fill in for the panel board. In this case, there's one that's showing for light fixtures. When you get back to the panel board, the construction, the dimensions, the constraints, the identity data. So all these things, depending on your point of view, I suppose, whether you're the electrical engineer trying to make this work, or the electrician trying to figure out how many feet of conduit you need to get there to put in your price, or the architect who probably wouldn't put the panel board in the middle of a wall like that. But in any event, we're all in this together. So again, you can enter type properties from these panel boards. The SPI data sets, which really started from short form specifications, I was a primary contributor of that. Mary Rose McGowan, who's the editor of Interior Graphic Standards, was a consultant. The SCIP board provided comments, other SCIP members. So it's a pretty robust set of data. And depending on your thresholds for anxiety, you can break this up endlessly. But again, as a specification writer working with architects who are putting their data in BIM, I'm just trying to get a spec out as quickly as I can, knowing that not everything will really, at this point, is ever in the BIM model. Signs, fire extinguishers, window treatment. I don't see these things in the models that I'm working with. So we have the 425 spec sections, a spreadsheet, a database. It's online. Here's just a sample of one of the indexes in early in Division 9, the master format, unit format, and section name. Back to the outline spec format that we looked before, master format, unit format. Again, if you look at it in the spreadsheet, the data tends to repeat, but again, it's the same data. Omni-class table, 49 properties. Again, CSI's been updating the properties table. I think Greg Seaton and Roger, I think you know that this was that those are being updated and released. Roger and Greg are marshaling that for CSI. So we have physical properties, mass and force properties, source properties. Our standards and formats, sometimes we're looking at master format as work results, and so we need our SPI data sets and our BIM models to recognize that. Other times we're working in uniformat, and we need the BIM model and the specifier to be able to recognize that information. There are other tables that are useful, the products table, the phases table. It's all wrapped together depending on where you are in the construction process, whether you're the owner or the contractor or somewhere, or the user or somewhere in between, back to the property set. So the discipline, who's in charge of what information, what materials they're actually using are there. And so to conclude, it's about putting information, intelligent information into BIM. So for me as a specifier, I can produce something that right now looks to me like a spec. And the property sets are the neck of the funnel for that. And so we're trying to have people participate. We find many of the manufacturers are early adopters because they would just assume their nouns be used as opposed to their competitors, I suppose. But of course, much terminology is determined by the trade associations and the building codes and the technical standards that are put out by a variety of people. So I think with that, Roger, can turn it back to you, and then answer questions. Do I need to send that to you, Roger, or do you have it back?
You still have it, Mark. I'm going to try something here just out of curiosity and just get a little interaction. I created a couple of poll questions while you were presenting, and I'm going to launch this and just see if it works and see if we get any response from people. So one, I'm kind of curious about how many people have already heard about this SPI work. So I'm going to launch that poll right now.
I'm changing the presenter to you, so
okay, fine.
And I can see your quick poll.
Oh, good. So we'll see what happens. 30. See. Oh, the 80-20 rule is not quite working for us, but we've got about 30% of the people have heard of it, and 70% have not. So we're getting the word out a little bit on this, I'd say, Mark. Maybe we talked a little bit about this last month, so that could be the source of that. Okay, I'm going to try another poll about how important do you think having attributed product information in a BIM is? Let's see what happens with this poll. I don't know what people can see on the screen right now. Can you see the poll?
I'm just seeing the original, the first one.
Oh, it's still the first one?
Yep.
Okay, wait a minute. I got to do something here. Close the poll. 98% voted, and this is the first poll. It's an odd thing. I can't see the results, but I guess you can. Maybe I have to. No, you can see my screen, right? With just the meeting outline in the background.
At this point, I'm seeing the poll results.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
And
so,
the SPI information is You know, there are different avenues. John McCaffrey and Deb McPherson, I think, who were on the call, were part of a BIM webinar about the use of BIM information and specifications. And I think as the tool becomes valuable, very valuable to one of the players in the chain, it will extend over to the others. And so whether it starts with an architect wanting to know that the brick is in the model, or a lead consultant wanting to know if the project is going to comply with lead because of, there's people have daylight from their seats, or whether it's a building product manufacturer wanting to know that here's a project they have a chance to bid on. Sooner or later, one of those groups will have enough at stake, I suppose, financially to continue the development work. And the IFC data, which has been going on for years in the background from my perspective, certainly not in the background from others, but from mine as a specifier, it'll all come into play.
Okay. And Mark, another thing to note is along with the parties that you just talked about are also the owners, because they could certainly be a driving force behind the adoption of information-rich models. And we're already seeing it happening with the GSA wanting to see information inside the models. So if an owner starts to require information so it can be leveraged for facilities management or forecasting, that can be a very strong driving force for how and why to put information into a model.
Okay, I'm going to launch another little poll here to take this a little bit further about the importance of having this attributed product information, which is, I guess you'd say, what SPI is focused on, right, Mark?
Right.
And I also remind anyone that would like to add a comment or make a comment or ask a question, you can raise your hand and I'll give you the ability to speak out if you want to join the conversation. Please feel free to do so. Okay, let's see, I'm going to give this one more minute here. Okay, we've got every 85% of the people voted. I'd say we've taken the pulse, so let's close the poll and share the results of this poll.
Well, it's nice to see that nobody sees it as unnecessary.
That's good, yeah.
Well, if it wasn't necessary, you could just go back to SketchUp.
Yeah, or pencil and paper.
Yeah, well, we're probably not going back that far, Bob. Okay, let's see. Bill, I'm going to let you speak up. You've got a comment or a question?
Yeah, I was just curious. I don't think it was fully explained in that I don't know what an attributed product information is. I've written specs, I've built buildings, big ones, and I've done all kinds of stuff, but I've never heard of this, and I have developed schematic specs and full developed specs, so I'm just curious, how does this word set change anything?
Well, I don't think it changes, this is Mark, and I don't think it changes anything, but it allows people to talk through a model. As a specification writer, perhaps it's your experience as well, as you don't always get to talk to the whole team all the time, and sometimes we're brought in quite late, and not everyone reads our documents. It may not be until the contractor reads the specification back to the architect that
well, I've seen that happen.
So, but an attribute of a product is something that affects cost or quality or source information. So if it's carpet versus carpet tile, there's an installation difference to the contractor, a price difference. If you pick a nylon carpet versus a polypropylene carpet, if you pick a carpet with a recycled backing, maybe that contributes to the LEED credit. And if you make a carpet, you know, how much is it, and will the name be represented? A lot of times schematic design specs have a basis of design, a Cournier 1600 or you know, an Armstrong ceiling tile, or you know, Shaw carpet or Interface carpet tile. So we put a lot of placeholders in our specs to allow the cost estimators and the contractors to look at what we're doing, and unless we add some attributes to the master format work results names, we don't get far enough.
So you're saying there are more attributes now included that were never included before in the specification?
Well, for example, using a light fixture, you know, you can specify a light fixture just by saying, you know, it's going to be selected by allowance. You can say you want a GE 123 halogen light fixture, or a GE 123 sodium vapor, and the more information you provide, the more that helps the people to understand the fixture that goes around that bulb, the power that's needed for that fixture, the number of circuits that need to be separated based on the loads that those provide, and the National Electrical Code, which probably describes every last wire in the building.
Okay, let me say you need all that data, you know, and the question is, at what point in time do you need all that data, and how fast is the project rolling? And if you got a fast track project, you know, where things are overlapping, something in some cases, you know, you need that information vitally in order to get that system underway. But you know, you don't need all of it all at once ahead of time. So I imagine it would unfold in the whole delivery process. Is that true?
I think that's a good point.
Mark, I just want to acknowledge that Lamar Henderson wanted to say something. Lamar?
Yes. ArchiCAD 13 has just come out with a new version, 13, with a model server. And I was wondering, has SPI looked into the possibility of having a database on a model server that can be accessed by a modeling program?
I think that's a good point. I know that, and I think I'll probably defer to Bob Wygant to finish the answer to this question, but you know, for example, when ARCAT puts up, you know, 400 BIM objects, or Autodesk has Seek, or Revit has master format and uniformat built into it, there are different databases that are going to be made available. I think what the hope is, rather than inventing the wheel 80,000 times, looking at the different keynotes systems that the offices have and the nouns that we use, that the work that Roger is doing with the international dictionaries, and the fact that CSI and Building Smart and the Corps of Engineers and NASA are supporting a common set of nouns. Unfortunately, this isn't here right now. I would use it immediately, but we're in the point where we all have to work together to develop this, and we're developing. You know, so many people are moving to BIM that you know, they're ready for more, but the industry isn't necessarily doing it, and individual firms have a lot of trouble, especially in this economy, developing a lot of in-house standards and terminology to invest in that. Bob, do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I do. But to kind of finish what you were saying, a lot of what's being done here with SPI and also the Table 49 properties that I'm working on with Deb McPherson and a few others is the idea is to create a new or a usable format that which people can use regardless of whether it's somebody's in-house database, whether it is whether it's Revit, whether it's Graphisoft, whether it's Bentley, regardless of the platform that's being used, it's a format and method by which information can be categorized. The same way that master format doesn't have a database that that Word can go reach out to use when you're writing specs. You may find people that are developing a third-party application that could potentially make that happen. In the same way, a third-party application would connect to either Graphisoft or Vectorworks, Bentley, Revit, whatever the software is. It's really more in the hands of the third-party software manufacturers that are gonna develop these little tools to make all of that happen.
And I'd like to maybe add to that. It's Roger. One of the things that Mark mentioned that we are working on is, and we've talked about it in this group some in the past, is the IFD library. And IFD library is a web service that does allow organizations that are creating databases to reference a common set of names of things that they want to put into their database. So in the case of SPI, we could have a common set of object names and a common set of attributes or properties that were predefined. Then whoever made a web service could reference those standard names and definitions and use them. Then the ability to exchange information would be greatly increased, because we might be able to have the same information no matter if it was a model server platform or just inside of an application. And we are working on adding that layer to the SPI project going forward here. I've got one more little poll to launch, so let me try that one. This is really asking if anyone's tried to do this and if you're having any success or not trying to use attributed product data in BIM models. While that's running, Greta Eckert, you had a question or a comment. I did unmute you if you want to say anything about that.
Yes, I'm really excited about everything that Mark is talking about and all the work that's going on organizing, really thinking about how we select and describe and communicate products. And when I saw the slide that had on the left-hand side the image of a BIM model sort of, and on the right-hand side I saw an image with about 20 pages of paper, I wondered, is anyone thinking about sort of new ways of communicating where we're not printing out, these volumes of multi-inch thick pieces of paper, but other ways of getting that information to the person who's actually building the building or ordering the products? I mean, I'm sure the answer is yes, but I think it would be interesting to know that side of it as well.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, I think as long as there's attorneys out there, there's trees that are going to fall.
True.
It just seems like everything always has to be on paper in that case. So, but at the same time, yeah, I'm constantly thinking about a better way to convey that information. Where the specification becomes one output form of this information, where you have all this information or metadata, like the information in a BIM model, or the information in a spec, or the information in a data sheet. It's designed. This is all attributed data, and the idea is that, I mean, there's a difference between informational data and attributed data. The information tells you informational data to what a product is, and the attributed tells you why that product was selected, or what its properties are. So it's the what and the why, and being able to take all that information, put it into tabular form that could then further be leveraged for an output form being a specification, or another output form being a data sheet, or another output form being schedules, or another output form being drawings. And being able to take all this information, and just because it's a drawing doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be on paper, or a specification doesn't necessarily need to be on paper. We have a lot of new technologies, as simple as PDF, that would allow the information to be printed fewer times.
Yeah, Bob, I think that I know that Federal Express reports they're shipping $900 million less worth of drawings around. That's not all due to the economy. I think they are now, the buzzword these days seems to be intelligent access. There's such a mountain of information, but you need to get to just the piece that you want. I've talked to several people who don't believe that Microsoft Word and Specs are at all compatible anymore, and that we don't need Microsoft Word. I know in our own office, our copier lease was up, and we just got something that was half the cost because we don't print anything anymore. We assemble the documents, it goes into a file, it's sorted by spec number, it's sent to the printer. If they need to print it, they send it to who they need to, but our courier service called up and asked if we'd fired them. We just don't send things physically anymore. But again, my office, a spec consulting office, may be different than an architectural office. So we just need to know what we need to know, and whether it's a checklist or a uniformat look at a model, or a master form. If we're looking downstream at how people use our data, and DCAM in Massachusetts now insists that the MEP subcontractors and steel fabricators have the same starting point in their reference point in their BIM model, so that these things can be imported once they're stripped of data that may be important to the fabricator but not to somebody doing clash detection. So it's the Wild West out there, but I think those of us with a fair number of years of experience realize that we need to find a better, faster way to do this without losing accuracy.
Mark, we have about 30% of our attendees have tried to or do work with product data in BIM. Maybe someone would be willing to share how that works and what advantages they get out of it.
I think that's a great idea, Roger. If
anybody's out there that
would send you or Bob Wygant samples, maybe a screen pick or a paragraph on how it's done, and you and Bob as leaders of this group could put together something for the next meeting that shows examples of what people mean by, they say, putting product data, because everyone on this group at this point is an early adopter, and I think sharing will really help.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. You could send information to Bob and myself. I'll show our addresses at the end of this. Or if anybody wants to just speak up with their experience right now, raise your hand and I'll give you the floor. To that end, hello? Oh,
yeah.
I don't know if someone was trying to speak. But anyway, somewhat to that end, I'm thinking it maybe next month or as soon as we might arrange it, that we would ask eSpecs to show us how they did. It's on a sort of on a demonstration basis at this point. As Mark said, this stuff is still early, but they can show us how they connected property sets that were structured around this SPI structuring and how they could access data from a Revit model and put it into one of their specifications. Would that is that something that might be of interest? And just to find out, I hope I'm not making everybody sick with this poll business, but I got a little poll on that subject. Whoops, I got to get back to it though.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting in trying to find out. People are putting product information into the models, but to what level are people adding information, and are they doing it manually, or are they seeking out models that already have information in them? So many questions come up when I see even a 30% of people putting information into the models. What is the preferred conduit for getting that information?
Good question. Someone did have their hand up. If they didn't take it away, I thought they did, but maybe I wasn't fast enough.
At the CSI convention on that Tuesday, there is a 3-hour program where this will be one of the topics. I'm one of the people on the panel. But, for people who are not going to the convention, certainly the CSI website and the BIM practice group are another way to communicate this, because, again, I think it's really about building a case for the value of the data.
Yeah, I guess we're going to do that one.
I think that's a pretty strong endorsement, so we'll try to track Gil down and see if we can get him lined up for one of the upcoming sessions. It's nice to see something, maybe some software working and how that would operate. Okay. Well, Mark, so what did you talk a little bit? I might have missed it if you sort of outlined kind of what the next steps on this for SPI are and where this might go and how it might actually end up in, in people's workflow at some point.
Well, the SPI Datasets, the initial effort was funded by the Corps of Engineers, and so they're done. They're moving on to energy, their next the next topic that they're funding, and so now it rests in the hands of the CSI Building Smart and NIBS to reach out to the manufacturers. I would think that one of the advantages I've always felt that CSI had were the mix of members and the value that industry and professional members. I guess that distinction isn't made anymore, but those people who are working for companies and working for design firms, they have a real need to speak the same language, because the consequences are pretty drastic on the other group if you get it wrong. And so I think that once you reach out to the trade associations, reach out to people who are already sort of categorizing their data. I think the HVAC people are pretty well categorized. I think that some of the maybe the tile people are pretty well categorized. Once that there's confidence that this is all building, and once there's a neck of the funnel, and whether it resides on the CSI website or a government website, the government prefers to list free databases on free websites. So I think that a year from now we'll probably see out of those 425 spec sections, I would say a third of them will have taken very big steps forward. In the architectural industry, I think you're going to see the ceiling, the wall, and floor people move forward, because those things are well represented in BIM software now. I think you're going to see the some of the major interests are really from the people who make conduit and pipe, and I don't talk to those people too much, but they want to be talked to. They want to, their livelihood depends on people understanding the different type of conduit. So I think it's just a matter of, putting the foundation in for a way for people to contribute and get information out, and then they will, it's not the Web 2. People will build the website for you.
Yeah, now all this work is available. You can see the property sets. You have to kind of do it one at a time, but you can go to the whole Building Design Guide website and look at some samples of the property sets and get a sense of, the work that Mark's done and where this might be going. That's at wbdg.org. But it's a little tricky to find, as I remember it, Mark. I don't know if you've got the roadmap to get there or not. I know you can't find it by poking around on the site. It's in the product guide section of the site, I believe.
Right, and I don't have the web addresses, but both the Building Smart, and it's almost easier to find in Building Smart, and then you can transfer over to the whole Building Design Guide because they're hot links.
So that's buildingsmartalliance.org is the other website.
It's .com.
Oh, .com. I was wondering about that. Thanks. Lamar, did you want to say something?
We have a small group of sort of an editorial board for JBIM magazine, and it would be great to have some articles. You guys submit some articles about this, because one of the things that we're finding, and when we had our discussion last time for the spring issue, is finding some articles really relevant and dealing with the issue of information in the BIM acronym. So, I would hope you guys would submit some abstracts.
And the article that you included, Bill East on Kobe in the last issue, was very helpful.
Yeah, and like we were talking about that getting more, because everybody is into the graphics, sexy drawings and sexy models and stuff, but the information is the key and the most critical aspect of it.
Yeah,
the whole process.
I'm absolutely willing to. This is Bob Wygant. I have a great deal of information put together on just that topic.
Fantastic.
Well, even if we did a recap of the December meeting with the, I believe the different PowerPoints, we could maybe pull something together in a couple-page article, and it's just going to take a lot of people to make happen.
Well, the spring issue has been put to bed to be in the fall, but just send Deke some abstracts so we can get this going. But it's it's a real weakness in our whole understanding of this process.
And for those of you who are on the phone that may not be aware, Lamar's talking about the Journal of Building Information Modeling. It's a publication of the Building Smart Alliance and NIBS, and I believe you can find the electronic version on the buildingsmartalliance.com website.
Correct.
So anyone can go check it out. And there are interesting articles in there every issue, which is quarterly. Is that right, Lamar?
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be half year. NIBS is doing 2 other magazines, so I think they're cycling through the year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think we'll close off the SPY discussion for now, but we will continue on this in a subsequent meeting with maybe a demonstration from Gil. So, Mark, thank you very much for that and sharing what you've done and what's been done on that project. I think it does help us get at better information for the I component of BIM and making it readily accessible for modelers. Still some work to do, but that's okay. Okay, well, I thought maybe just before we close out here, a couple things. One was last month we talked about the BIM guidelines and some discussion about BIM practices, and I don't know how many of you have been there, but on the CSI website or on the CSI wiki at wiki.csinet.org, you will find what we've put up as a BIM guidelines, CSI BIM guidelines, and it's an outline of let's see if I can get this to come up here. I guess I have to hit go. Of what we have, some work that we've been doing at CSI Technical Committee. Bob Wygant wrote a little paper for us on BIM. I think we've talked about that, and we put together this longer outline trying to sort of come up with a guide or a practice, best practices. And we've talked to people about using the wiki to go out and comment, contribute things. And based on our last meeting, we've been talking about getting a group going, a subgroup of the practice group going to maybe work together on this. And we have a volunteer, and we're confident she won't come to regret this. Greta Eckert has agreed to help get this organized and get it moving. So I think Greta's on the call today. Greta, I'm not going to put you on the spot to say or do anything, but just maybe you can acknowledge yourself.
Yes, I am here, and I'm excited about working on this. I've started to think about how those guidelines could be worked on, and perhaps we'll have something a little bit more to present at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. And Greta, could you maybe just say, if you wouldn't mind, what you do and why you're interested in this?
Right. I'm a specifier for Shapley Bulfinch in Boston, which is a moderately large firm, and I've just been really fascinated about learning what I can about having the really rich information that's possible and building information model. I'm not an expert, but I read everything I can about this, and would like to actually possibly enlist a co-chair who may be approaching it from a different point of view to get a complementary leadership viewpoint. I think it would be really helpful to have a place where we showed people what standards are available, all of the standards that Mark described as being used in the property sets, the different Omniclass tables, and kind of outline those and then link them through the life cycle of a project. What is most useful to think about at different times and how would it be used?
So there's plenty of things for this group to take on, and I think that what we're going to do, first of all, if you're on the phone today, if you're on the call or the meeting today and you're interested, you can email me or Bob, and we'll get you plugged into this effort. I think I will probably be sending an email out to the whole group just to try to catch anyone that might be interested. And if we, the saying, many hands make light work. So if we can get enough of us interested in contributing to this, we might be able to put something interesting together without weighing any one person down unduly. And could be an interesting set of practices to have to help all of us. So Greta will work on finding that co-chair. We might even have a prospect for you already.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was actually waiting to see if anybody else wanted to step up. But Greta, I told Roger earlier that I'd be happy to co-chair this effort. I've started the ball, and we have kind of not opposing but complementary perspectives where I'm on more the development side and you're on the implementation side. So we can kind of run quite a bit of what's necessary as far as best practices.
That sounds great.
And I would just add, also that when one of the things when we first set up the practice group, we polled people that were interested in. This is one of the things that a lot of people were very interested in collaborating on, is documenting best practices. So I'm optimistic this could, really be a good effort and get some involvement from the group. So we'll send out more information about that and maybe, touch on this as part of our meeting topics for the next little while. So we're just about out of time. I did, in fact, I think we are out of time. I did collect a list on the last meeting of topics. Maybe I'll hold that off until the next meeting. I think we've got assuming we can get Gil lined up, it might be good to follow up with him to show eSpecs and Revit and SPI working together. So, Bob, I don't know if anything to wrap up. Well, the next meeting I've proposed is February the 18th at 1 p.m. And Bob, if you have any closing comments you want to make, we could take those. If anybody has any other questions or comments from the audience, we could entertain one or two of those also.
Yeah. Well, if we have no other questions, I wanted to thank Mark for taking time out today to talk to us about the SPI project. And it's very, very informative, very important. Also, it was very interesting to see some of the feedback on those polls, and kind of answering those questions helps us really figure out what direction to head some of these meetings in. So the feedback is absolutely appreciated, and thank you everybody for listening in today. And everybody have a good weekend. We'll see you in about a month.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care, Mark. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Roger.
Thank you.